Hi, welcome to today's webinar, Managing Stress and Anxiety. My name is Jesper Viveen and I'm the host for tonight. Today's webinar is brought to you by your mental health platform OpenUp. OpenUp offers webinars like this, self-help programs, check-ins, and one-on-one contact with a psychologist via chat, phone, or video consultations. Today we're going to talk about stress and anxiety. Stress is the airbag of our life. It gives us the extra push we need to get out of our comfort zone. Too much stress, however, will have a counterproductive effect. Also, anxiety, caused by worrying too much, is something which is part of our daily life challenges. Today, Mirte and Irene will tell you all about these two topics, give you examples, discuss the theory behind stress, anxiety, and worrying, give you some light exercises that you can do by yourself at home. But also, after today's webinar, we will, spread out over the next month, send you 2 exercises. Exercises you can do by yourself, or exercises you can do with one of the OpenUp psychologists. These exercises are brought to you on video, and also Mirte and Irene will tell you a little bit more about when you can expect to get these assignments in your inbox, and what you can expect from these assignments, what the topics are. Today it's also possible to ask questions. After the presentation of Mirte and Irene, we will go sit down and I will be able to ask questions to Mirte and Irene directly. You can ask these questions in the YouTube chat on the right side of the screen, or you can send these questions to the email webinar@openup.care. And I'll make sure that we will discuss these questions. I hope you're ready, because we're about to start. I'm very excited to learn more about stress, anxiety, and worrying. And I'm going to hand over the presentation to Irene now. Good luck.
I'm Irene, and this is my colleague Mirte, who you see here. And today we're going to talk about stress and worrying. And, you know, nowadays we have a lot on our plate, right? Corona, you guys work, maybe you work at home, you have the children there. And there's a lot on your plate. So we see a lot of people experiencing stress. People have a hard time relaxing and feel stressed, but also get stressed from feeling that they have to be relaxed, right? No, I can already feel that you're getting stressed, right? So we hear all over the media that stress is not good for us. That is why we get afraid. We think we have to be relaxed all the time. And we see the billboards around stress and yoga, meditation, rising all over the world. However, we see that most people get stressed from not being able to be stressed sometimes. And today we want to talk to you about that. Because stress is the spice of life. We need it, just like Jesper already said. So today we want to talk to you about what it is and how to deal with it, but also how to deal with worrying. So today this live kickoff is around this theme, and we will be mainly theoretical. We want to talk to you about stress, what it is. When is it adaptive, and when does it become chronic? How can you manage stress, and what are maybe not the best ways to manage it, like worrying? Then I will tell you more about worrying, what it is, when we do it, why we do it, and how can we let go of control, right? Afterwards, we'll tell you a little bit of a heads up on this week's or month's assignments. So I'm really looking forward to seeing you through this webinar, and we hope that you ask a lot of questions in the Q&A for later. Mirte is now going to tell you a lot about stress and what it is.
Thanks, Irene. For me, the interesting task to walk you through some theory to understand the phenomena of stress a bit better. It will be helpful and actually practical to know more about our stress system. When we understand our bodily signals better, we can better anticipate. Stress is a catch-all term. It includes stressors as well as stress reactions. Causes of stress, the so-called stressors, can be external and internal. External ones: I had to run for the bus, I had an exam, there was this huge deadline, I lost my iPhone, I had a fight with a loved one, I was short on money, I was in the jungle and there I saw this huge snake, there was a lockdown, etc. External stressors. There are also internal stressors, and that's my thoughts and my feelings, and Irene will go into that later on in this webinar. But also the stress reaction we call stress. My heart is racing, I felt tense, my muscles are sore, I have difficulties concentrating, I can't sleep that well, I feel anxious, I was worrying. So also the stress reaction is called stress. The stressor and the stress reaction, it's a catch-all term, we all call it stress. We tend to think that we only have stress nowadays in our modern, technological, fast world. But that's not true at all. Stress has always been there and will always be there. Stress is the engine of our evolution. Stress is at the root of a great deal of life on Earth, of the emergence of new species, and of mankind. The modern world is a great response to the hunger, the thirst, and other dangers that threatened our ancestors. Only under pressure, a species will adapt and accommodate. Art, culture, technology are responses to old stressors. Without stress, no evolution. Darwin already knew that. So stress is our lifeguard and our surviving mechanism. But why can it be such a burden for us? Let's take a look at our nervous system. This is divided into the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. The central nervous system is the part of the nervous system consisting of our brain and spinal cord, while the peripheral nervous system includes all of the nerves that branch out from the brain and the spinal cord towards our muscles and our organs. The peripheral nervous system allows the brain and spinal cord to receive and send information to other areas of the body, which allows us to react to stimuli in our environment. The peripheral nervous system is also, as you can see, divided into two branches. The somatic nervous system, that's responsible for voluntary movement, like I want to lift my arm, and I do that. And the automatic nervous system. And this is a control system, and that acts largely unconsciously to regulate our bodily functions, such as heart rate and the muscle flow to the blood flow to the muscles, and it dilates the pupils, for example, when we are stressed. And we're going to take a closer look to that. So what you see here is the human body and the autonomic nervous system. And what you see is that most organs receive signals from both systems because they need to give other responses when the body is in action and when the body is in rest. Let's look at the sympathetic nervous system. That prepares the body to expend energy to respond to environmental stress and threats. When action is needed, the sympathetic system triggers a response by accelerating heart rate, increasing breathing rate, boosting blood flow to muscles, activating sweat segregation, and dilating the pupils, like I said. Imagine that you cross a street and suddenly a car passes you on high speed. That's what you do. You feel your breath, you feel your heart rate, you look to see what's happening and you protect yourself, fight or flight. The parasympathetic system helps maintain normal body functions and conserve physical resources. Once a threat has passed, this system will slow the heart rate, slow the breathing, reduce blood flow to the muscles and constrict the pupils. And it increases digestive activity of the stomach and it increases the blood supply to the genitals. So let's take here a look to go short. You have the sympathetic system, fight, flight, freeze, when action is needed, and there is the parasympathetic system, rest and digest, and also called feed and breed. So in this relaxed state, the body is open to food and to sexual activity. Let's call this ANS, this automatic nervous system, let's call her ANS. It's our alarm system. And she is continuously scanning our environment, whether we are safe or not, in order to survive. The most famous example is when ANS sees a lion. She will make sure you run away, sympathetic energy, and once you brought yourself into safety again, on switches to the parasympathetic and allows you to recover and rest. A perfect combination of activation and relaxation. Well, this fantastic working mechanism that activates us when needed and restores when we are safe again, that's our stress system. But when we talk about stress, we talk about when this beautiful mechanism isn't working that smooth anymore. Until now, we looked at a beautiful bodily system that helps us to adapt to stay safe. But why can this system be such a burden for us? Stress has gone from beginning a useful evolutionary principle to a major problem because industrial, agricultural, technological revolutions created so many changes that our stress system is receiving too much stressors. The mammoth, the lion, the snake are replaced by a busy city, social media, corona pandemic, climate changes, and let's talk about ourselves, our thought, our fears, our FOMO, our deadlines, all these stressors. And all these things activate the flight response. But it doesn't help when we are dealing with a deadline or when we are afraid we are missing out. So when you feel tense for weeks, when you notice a reduction in your libido, when your irritability is high, and when you have difficulties concentrating, probably the sympathetic system is overactive. Let's resume. We need stress. You could almost say, I have stress, thus I exist. And if life is too boring, that would be awful. So we need stress. We need a little challenge. We need to push our boundaries and adventure. But it becomes a problem when the carrying load exceeds the carrying capacity. What to do or what not to do? That's the next question. Coping strategies, the way we deal with stress, are the behaviors, the thought and the emotions that you use to deal with stress. We divide the coping mechanisms into active and passive ones, healthy and unhealthy ones. And here I'll show you a whole list of healthy coping mechanisms. The 4-7-8 breathing, for example. What's that? You breathe in for 4 counts. 1, 2, 3, 4. You hold your breath for 7 counts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And you exhale for 8 counts. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This cycle of 4, 7, and 8, you can take it 3, 4, 5 times. And what it does, it overrules the sympathetic activity and it helps you to relax immediately. What we also know is that listening to music, exercising, writing about your feelings, taking a break from technology, leaning, talking and asking, so social contact, and gratitude and acts of kindness all help to calm down, to ease, to activate the parasympathetic system. What doesn't help? Drinking alcohol or using other substances. Of course, we all know the pleasant effects of it, but it's not helpful to use this to manage your stress. In contrary, it adds stress to the system. Too much or too little eating is a reaction many people have. It's absolutely not healthy to do. Avoidance, so to withdraw from social contact or to avoid the tasks you have to do, are all these mechanisms we all know to not have to deal with the stress, but in the end it's adding up to our stress. In conclusion, stress gives you a push to step out of your comfort zone when you need it. And in addition, stress is our airbag of life. It protects us in times of danger. However, too much or chronic stress is counterproductive. Then the motivating and protective effect is lost and we feel psychologically and physically tensed. And moreover, you often get worrying into the bargain as one of the not helping coping strategies. Irene will take over now and tell you more about worrying.
So, thanks Mirte for this clear explanation about stress and which strategies to use or not to use. Likewise, worrying. But before we delve into worrying, some initial thoughts on our thinking mind. So, think about these. The greatest mistake you can make in your life is to continually fear you'll be making one. Or the one I really like, that worrying is like a rocking chair. It gives you something to do but never gets you anywhere. So, if we believe these quotes, worrying is quite useless, right? And actually I think it is as well, but still I do it so much. So, why? And when do we do it? Before we continue on this worry path, I'd first like to give you some general information about your thoughts and your thinking mind. So, we have approximately 60,000 thoughts a day. Can you imagine? 60,000 thoughts. And 95% of them is a repetition of previous days. So you've thought of them before. And then 75% of them is negative. Why? Well, it helps us in survival. We're not set on this earth to be happy or to think positively all the time. We're here to survive, just like Mirte already told you with the theory of evolution. So we have a bigger chance of survival when we have a tendency to be alert on negative information, danger, etc. So that's already a little start to why we worry. But then, of all the concerns we have, we see that 85% of the concern does never become reality. So it's just something you have in your head. And of the remaining 15%, we see that 79% of people can handle it way better than they think. Right? So actually, if we look at the statistics, again, why worry? So before moving on to the why of worrying, I first want to explain you a little bit about what worrying entails. So the word worry comes from the Arab word of thinking. Now, I don't see worrying as thinking so much. Worrying is no longer the same, right? Thinking always leads to solutions. So as you can see here on this graph, thinking is from A, problem, thinking about certain outcomes or what you can do, moving forward, taking action, and then coming to B, the end conclusion, the end solution, action, and it's done, you can let go. So often it helps us to feel release and activate the parasympathetic again. With worrying, we see you start with A, what if, and you come in this loop where you probably feel a lot of helplessness because it leads you deeper in this cycle of, oh, but what if that, and what if this, but if that happens, then how can I deal with that, right? So it's more about not being able to problem solve. However, we do think we are problem solving, but it gets you in this loop where you end up in the middle. With worrying, what is also very important is what we call a metacognition. And a metacognition is actually a cognition, a thought, about our thoughts. So for instance, you can imagine when you have a thought about worrying that says, worrying is not really good, or worrying doesn't help me, you'll probably worry less than when you think worrying is good for me, worrying helps me. So we see that these metacognitions, or the thoughts about thinking, are very important in the why of worrying. Mirte already said something about stress and that it is not something of this time, and we see that with worrying as well. Loads of people think that we only worry now, but that actually isn't true. It's universal, and it's of all times. Think back of the Greeks and the Romans, or when you think about big philosophers, they're all from way back, and they were worrying already and writing about worrying as well. Verkuijlen is a professor in psychology who did a lot of research on worrying, and he came up with a definition on worrying. He described worrying as the following. Worrying is a chain of thoughts and images, with a negative effect, so they have a negative emotion, which are mostly uncontrollable, And it's an attempt from us to mentally problem solve issues whose outcome is uncertain, but contain a possibility of one or more negative outcomes. So we see that it means that when there's an uncertainty in our life, which is often there, of course, we start to mentally problem solve, right? What if he found out this? Or maybe this will happen, or what should I do about that? We see these thoughts are often very abstract, right? What will happen if I lose my job? We don't know. What if my boyfriend is leaving me? Yeah, what if? What if I'm embarrassed by my colleagues? What if they don't like me? Why didn't I get into this or that? Right? So it's all about the what ifs or all the possibilities that could happen. It's abstract, we don't know, we can never have one conclusive answer. So there again you see there are so many possibilities that are there that you only see more and more and more uncertainty. So when do we worry actually, and why do we keep on worrying? Here on this slide you see some basic needs that we all have as human beings. We have them when we're little, but we also have them when we're adults. We see autonomy, shelter, safety of course, but also love and authenticity. All these needs are very important for us people to feel okay as we are and to live our lives. We also see that they are important for us in our way to survive. So ANS is also related to our basic needs. So ANS is there to keep us safe, right? She's there to fight or flight or freeze whenever we need her, but she's also there to keep us relaxed when possible. And we have learned that ANS keeps us safe when our basic needs are met. She knows when there's real danger and she knows when she can relax. But what we also sometimes see is that not everyone has been seen in their needs. So maybe, for instance, there was little freedom at home, or you didn't receive all the love you wanted or needed. And what we then see is that ANS can become more alert. She's like there for you to start fighting when you need her to fight. And that can go on later in life as well. But also, not only in childhood, but also in adulthood, for instance, when there's something at work where you feel your need for instance, autonomy isn't being met, ANS becomes more alert. And what happens when ANS is more alert? She starts sort of searching for danger. Maybe there isn't even danger, but she finds something that she can think about. So what we often see is that if ANS sees something that is dangerous, maybe, for instance, you have a presentation at work and you think, maybe they don't like me so much, so your need for belongingness is at stake. ANS will try and help you to mentally problem solve this problem that you're having, to help you and to keep you safe. So what she's actually doing is she fills the gap between what you want, what you need, and what is reality. Right? So your need is autonomy. You don't feel like there's a lot of autonomy in the reality, so that gap in between is being filled by ANS with giving you all these problems in your head. What can also happen is that it's not that much the reality that's the problem, but actually your want, right? We have high expectations of life, and maybe reality isn't so big, right? Maybe you had wishes for a big party, but the reality was that it wasn't so nice. And then we also see that a lot of people start worrying to fill that gap. So now we know a little bit about why we worry and when we worry, but why does it continue, right? Why does it go on and on and on? And we want to sleep, but it's still there. Or we want to focus on work, and it's still there. And it's super uncontrollable. So when we zoom out a little bit, we've learned that worrying is from all times. It's normal. We all do it, right? But why do we keep doing it? Well, we know it doesn't help us. What we see is that worrying is automatic. So it's from ANS, she just does it, right? It's a reflex to keep us safe. The protective response that we were just talking about to keep you out of damage in the future. In addition, we also worry because subconsciously we have the idea that it helps us. that it gives us something meaningful, or that it solves problem. And this arises from conditioning. So what we see is that worrying gives a lot of people this sense of control. It's like an illusion of control, where we think that if we think enough about all the problems, we can prevent something from happening. So suppose you have to give a presentation at work. Well, let's look at me maybe. Then my brain can give me all these examples of what can go wrong, right? I can go turn red, maybe you guys check out because you don't like it, maybe I forget the lines, maybe I say something weird, maybe, I don't know, my cheeks flush, or you see that I'm sweating or something like that. All these possible outcomes are things that my brain can already give to me. My ants can already show this in thoughts or images. And what we see, what happens with conditioning, is if I then take that very seriously and think, okay, so this can happen, that can happen, that can happen, and I try to find solutions to prevent something from happening, I'm thinking I'm in control, right? I can put some makeup on my face so you don't see the flushed cheeks, or I don't know, you can figure some things out to prevent things from happening. But what we then see is the presentation goes well. And you think, that was nice. Of course, I know that that wasn't because I worried, but my brain thinks it was. So what you see is this connection gets formed between worrying and preventing and actually being safe. So what happens is then your brain thinks, so this worrying, this preventing, this thinking a lot is helpful. Let's do that more often. However, as you also see on the slide, the long term, you're not happy. You lose a sense of control because that brain is taking over. You don't have control anymore over when it's thinking. It's keeping you out of sleep. Maybe you get tensed muscles, or you get a sore stomach, or you get a headache, right? So a lot of negative effects are there on the long run. But because the short term is so satisfying to feel that illusion of control, we keep on doing it. That has also to do with another form of conditioning, where if we get a satisfaction, or if we get a reward, we do behavior more often, right? If we give a child a candy after it's being nice, they think, okay, I will show that behavior more often. So that is why worrying continues. What we often see with worrying, and what I just explained to you, is the need for control. We want control as human beings because that gives us a safe feeling as well. So, do we have control, you think? Well, most people know, no, I know, I don't have control. But still, we're really looking forward to finding control. Also with our thinking mind. We want our mind to stop whenever we want her to stop. We want her to think certain things, and she's giving us other thoughts that we don't want to have. And we feel this loss of control. So, control is a big theme in why we worry and why it keeps on going. So now I'd like to do an exercise with you guys. Please close your eyes. You can also keep them over, look at the ground maybe. And before you open them one more, you see this pink elephant, right? And now close them. What I'm going to give you is, I think, 30 seconds. Yeah, let's say 30 seconds, where it's not allowed to think about a pink elephant. Think about anything else, but you cannot think about a pink elephant. Okay, go. Okay, time's up. Just record what happened. Maybe share it with us in the chat. Now we're going to do the same thing for the second time, but now you can think about anything and everything, including a pink elephant, but everything is fine. And again, record what happened. Okay, close your eyes again. There we go. Okay, and open your eyes again. Please again, let us know what it did. If you're like most humans, the first one was quite intense, right? Probably all you thought about was that pink elephant because you wanted to push it away. It couldn't be there, it had to leave. You were fighting it, right? Your ants was fighting it. Whilst in that second condition, it was okay, it was allowed, the pink elephant could be there, but every other thought could be there as well. And you probably thought about it a couple of times, but maybe you were also distracted about thinking about the webinar or maybe your food for tomorrow. So what we see here is that if you fight something and you don't want to have something like worrying, it will become bigger and bigger and bigger. And you can compare this phenomenon to, for instance, the smell of a fart. If you let that fart in a small cubicle with no windows and the door closed, well, what happens? It smells, right? And it stays there for a long time and it lingers on and you think, oh no, I don't hope anyone is coming here. But when you let out the same fart on top of, let's say, the Kilimanjaro, for instance, no one will notice, right? So it flows away, it gets air, it gets space, it gets room, and no one notices and you're not shamed. You're ashamed from yourself. So this is the whole phenomenon with worrying. If you keep tidying it, you can't have it, you're fighting it, it should go. It's only going to be there more and more and more. You can see it here on this picture as well. If you're fighting it, you want to take that monster off the cliff. You're so wound up and so worked on focusing on that monster that you do not have any other attention for anything else. So if we see this monster as your brain, your thinking mind, your feelings, your bodily sensations that arise when you're stressed, just like Mirte told you, maybe your heart rate or maybe this nervous feeling in your stomach, and you're fighting it and you're constantly like pulling the rope and wanting that monster to go away, what happens? Will the monster let go, you think? Well, if I were the monster, I would start pulling back, right? And saying, you want me there, I'll get you in there as well. And the monster is big and the monster will grow and it will get bigger and bigger and stronger, just like you're worrying. So again, this shows that the more attention we give worrying and stress, and the more we want to control it and not want to have it there, the bigger it becomes, and the more it will sort of, how do we say it, soak up your life. So what would happen if you let go of this rope? What would happen if you shift your attention to something else? What would happen if you trust yourself that everything will work out fine and that if it doesn't, it still will? For now, we first want you to take a step back and to learn how to deal with this monster. And in the other exercises, we will go into it in more depth. But for now, I want you to give a little bit of a tip on how to deal with that monster. Because let's say that monster is your brain, right? I think if you've seen previous webinars, you know my brain is called Truus, right? So I gave her a name to already distance myself a little bit from her. So taking a step back in that as well. But also to help you put your thinking mind into perspective. So when there's a thought that's bothering you, let's say this won't work. Then we have the thought, this won't work. But you can also say to yourself, I think this won't work. Or my mind tells me that I think that this won't work. And what happens then is that you already get this sort of feeling of distance, a sort of feeling of air between yourself and that thought. And that helps you to put it into perspective and to take it a little bit less seriously. What we also see a lot of people is that, or if I look at myself, maybe that's a better helpful example, is that I often think I can't do things, right? So especially in sports, 3 older brothers, very good at sports. I'm not really good at sports. So I sort of learned to say to myself, oh, I can't do sports. So when I now do something active like skiing, which I thought I couldn't do, I told myself, no, I can't do this. So I was on top of that mountain, being there like, oh no, I can't do this, I can't do this. And what it helped me is to say, okay, I think I can't do this. My mind is telling me that I think I can't do this. Well, let's see, and go for it, right? And then you experience more things and you start noticing that actually that thought wasn't really true, that you can do something, right? So that's the first tip, to get a bit more distance between yourself and that thinking mind. And also what you can do is thank your mind. Because Truus, for instance, for me, but maybe you called her Bart or Clara or I don't know, is to know that she is there or he is there to help you, right? Ans is there to keep you safe, to help you survive, to help you thrive. And you can learn her to say, hey, thanks Ans, thanks Truus, it's okay, I'm fine, I'm safe, I got this. Thanks for all these thoughts you're giving me. Thanks for all these bodily sensations that I'd rather not have. I know you're here to help me, but I got this. Try it again and again and again and again and again, and you will see it helps. So, for now, a little recap. We learned that the essence of the story of today is that worrying is evolutionary useful, right? It helps us with survival, just like we need stress. It's a response to stress and danger, which comes, for instance, when the balance is off-key or when our needs are not being met. We continue worrying because of conditioning, and we continue because we think it helps us and because we resist it. And there's a very nice saying that what we resist persists. So let us help you with this in the next month. For now, we want to leave you with a little few reflectional questions that we want you to think and not worry about. So please read these through in your own time. Think about, like, am I having an adaptive stress at this moment? And if so, am I also worrying about it? Or in which situations do I actually worry? What is my personal response actually to stress? Like, how does it show for me? And when I am worrying, do I think this helps me, or what could help me right now? Just let your mind go over these things, and you can always look back at it after the webinar. So for the upcoming month, today we had this webinar. In 4 days' time, we will give you your first exercise, and 6 days later, the second exercise will come your way. Because when we know about worrying and stress, we already said, drop the rope, right? Let go. Put things into perspective. Make it concrete instead of abstract. We know it's important to go to the core of your worries, because if it takes abstract and it becomes bigger and bigger and bigger, it's this pool you're sort of drowning in. Whilst when we get to the bottom and the core of something you're worrying about, we can often see, oh, it wasn't that bad, right? So, for instance, when you're afraid that your colleagues will laugh at you, you're maybe not even that afraid about them laughing at you, but maybe you're afraid that everyone might leave you. Well, that is a big one, right? And if you see that big one, you might think, oh, well, no, that won't happen. That's not true. So in the coming weeks, we will send you more in-depth exercises, first of all, to help you get to the core of things, to let go. Also, how to focus on your breathing. So Mirte will tell you a lot about breathing exercises to help you calm yourself down and to activate the parasympathetic part of ANS. And also what we're going to do is help you through letting go, right? Because it's such a large thing to say, letting go, and we think, how are we going to do that? So we're going to help you through exercises that are based on cognitive diffusion. I will tell you more about that. If you want to learn more, it's only in Dutch for now, but it's De Gelukkige Piekeraar. It's like The Happy Warrior. It's a really nice book to read. And also books about acceptance and commitment therapy might be useful, for instance, from Gijs Jansen or Stephen Hayes. Now we're going to go over to the Q&A.
Thank you, Irene and Mirte, for the interesting webinar. The exercises, I already saw a lot of people responding to the pink elephant, which was a very, I've heard of it before today. I think it's a very well-known exercise. There's also more exercises coming. You recorded some exercises. We're going to send them to the people watching this webinar. You already explained a little bit more, so right now in the Q&A, I really want to dive into some questions that have been asked, either prior to the webinar or during the webinar, all about stress, worrying, and anxiety, as we've been discussing today. Let me see, the first question. Somebody already prior to the webinar said, I've tried a lot about worrying, but my worrying goes on, and sometimes I feel like it will never stop. How can I stop this?
I think if we would really have an answer to stop worrying, what I also said, I think, during the webinar, I think I would be very rich, because we all want control over our thinking mind. And of course, in every situation, it's a bit different, I think, in how to stop worrying. But I think what you mainly can do for yourself is ask yourself, why do I think worrying is helpful? What do I get out of it? It probably has something to do with control. But also to really see, like, do I think I can problem solve something? Do I think I can prevent something? Do I think it helps me be stronger or nicer or something like that? And to really test yourself. So try to not worry for a couple of minutes and see what happens, right? Do the presentation without worrying and do the presentation with worrying and see what is different, for instance. Also see with worrying is that it's very much integrated in our life, so it's almost normal to worry, right? And what can really happen is also with conditioning, we link worrying, for instance, to the couch, right? You're watching television and you start worrying, so your brain thinks, okay, so the couch is a place to worry. So what can be a useful tip for now, I think, as well, is to really make worrying something not nice. So sit straight on a table, with a sort of a pen and paper in front of you for 15 minutes and really make yourself uncomfortable during the worrying, to get this new sort of neural path in your brain that helps you to stop doing it.
Never actually thought about that when I sit down in the television or whenever, I don't know, I'm in the shower, that's sort of a trigger to worry, because I've always been worrying when I'm doing that. I think it's a very interesting and valuable tip to say, go sit down, to really worry, but make it uncomfortable, so that you actually tell your brain this is something that you don't like.
And when you do worry under the shower, for instance, just say to yourself, okay, stop, right? I sometimes say do this, or give yourself some physical impulse or something that you think, oh yeah, out of that brain, at the table, at 5 is my worry time, not now.
Yeah, exactly. So there's the time, in Dutch, het piekerkwartier, the worry quarter.
15 minutes a day you can...
And when you already place that in your calendar, so you know today I'm worrying 15 minutes, and now I can stop, because tomorrow, at the same time, there's time for worrying.
Great.
That helps.
Great. And there are some questions coming in, so I'm just going to pick one that already was asked, because I see some stuff happening on the screen. I talked about this pink elephant. Somebody asked a question about the pink elephant exercise. What if someone's so good at distancing from thoughts, like, for example, distancing from the thought of the pink elephant, that they start to dissociate or split? To maybe rephrase that question a little bit to help you. What if it means if someone is very good at not thinking about a pink elephant?
Yeah, so they're so good at numbing, you mean? Sorry? You mean they're so good at numbing, not thinking at all?
Yeah, exactly.
And they call it the word dissociation. Well, first of all, I think this is something to also go a bit more into depth with, because dissociation is a stress response when there's so much stress that your body says, this is too much. I sort of zoom out, I can't handle it, and I completely black out and switch off. So if I were that person, I would really want to discuss, hey, what are your triggers to go there, for instance? Because what we normally see is that when we do not suppress so much, right, the pink elephant will come up. So if someone is so good at numbing and so good at sort of pushing everything away, they will probably have other pink elephants in the form of stress reaction in their body or pain or ear, how do you say it? Yeah, tinnitus, like things in their ear, right? So the stress comes out in another way than maybe thinking.
Okay.
Dissociation, I think we have to go more in depth to...
So in that case, specific person, maybe the advice is to really help you with this question. You as a psychologist need to be able to ask some questions before really getting into the bottom of it. So in that case, reach out to us via openup.nl and we can go into more depth. And there's two questions that are sort of related, and I'll ask the question from the person that I think other people can relate with a little bit. I recently had a friend who got into a burnout, somebody that I've never expected that would be able to even go into a burnout. Now I'm afraid that this is something that can also happen to me, especially because it looked like this person was always okay. What are signals that I should look for to avoid this? Or how do I recognize that stress or worrying is unhealthy?
Let's look back at ends and then the sympathetic activity. There must be something like maybe difficulties with concentrating. There must be something with breathing, with the heart rate, with being more warm or more cold, or there must be some digestion problems or something with having to be more or less, and something with libido. And so in the whole line from brain until genitals, the whole, and of course the muscles, so maybe some sore muscles, or you recover less good after exercise. The body is keeping the score, and the body is telling you that there is too much activity. So when you think I'm completely fine, but like my friend, suddenly there was this burnout, check it. How do I have headaches? Are my muscles sore? What about my heart? Is my breathing free and slow? Do I have digestive problems? How about my libido? And how's my sleep? Am I worrying?
Yeah.
There's this whole checklist.
And I think what
Happens a lot is that what you've also said, I think, in the webinar, is that so many people are constantly in their sympathetic drive. They are so used to having these sore muscles. If I look at my friends as well, how often we say, "Ooh, sort of my neck hurts," or "I had a headache," right? It's almost normalized, but it's not normal. So if you notice yourself after a day, and I think last time we talked about last webinar we talked about energy givers and energy drainers, and register them, but also register how's your body feeling after a day of work, or maybe halfway through your day. How is your stomach? How is what you've just said, right? And look at how you're actually doing, because the body's telling you a lot of things. Overnight that you have nothing, of course, but you just didn't listen. Yeah, or you couldn't listen.
Great, thank you. There's a question that's about minimizing negative effects of stress and worrying. I want to take a little bit of a different approach here. Maybe you guys can give 3 of the most important tips that you've had in the past, or that we've discussed in the webinar today, about minimizing stress or minimizing worrying. And maybe give an example of what you do yourself.
Well, my tip is to not focus on what to minimize, but maximize what's good for you. So focus on the positive things. And the gratitude, so every day register what went well. Maybe it's very small thing, but when you register and are aware of the things that are going well, after 1 month we already see progression in stress diminishment. listening to music, making music that overrules the stress activity.
We both sing, actually.
Sing.
And we also say that what singing does is it activates your vagus nerve, which is also has a lot to do with ends, right? So also humming, like oh, those things, they activate your vagus nerve, which in turn again activates your parasympathetic nervous system. So please start humming under the shower, sing under the shower, and also do it when you do not feel well. So my mom used to always tell me that when I had stomach aches or something and she didn't hear me sing in the shower, she believed that there was really something wrong, because if I was singing, there was nothing wrong. So normally we do those things when we feel good, right? So what I sometimes also do is start singing when I feel bad, to just tell my body like, hey ants, I'm fine, it's okay, chill out. Yeah, so I think even if you can't sing, just do it.
And act of kindness. Well, for example, stop when somebody is crossing the street and say, hey, you can go. These acts, then you connect with your empathy, and that helps you to release.
And then we of course have the tips of mindfulness, right? I think a lot of people know about mindfulness and staying in the present moment. Yesterday when I was thinking about today, I could already feel a bit of nerves, to tell yourself, okay, this is today, we'll see about that tomorrow, right? What I've said in the webinar, I think, is for me very helpful, is to thank your mind and say, okay, I know all these things can happen. Thanks mind, thanks Truus, I got this.
Thanks.
And maybe if a shower is a place where you worry a lot, start singing and singing. Yeah, yeah. Other examples that the people that have watched the webinar gave are focusing on breath. We've already discussed that as well. Walking, do something with your hands. A recent interview we did with Chris Byrne, the head of e-commerce of Bestseller. He found stress release and he found himself stop worrying with gardening. So there's a
beautiful book, Gardening the Mind, and it's all about how working in the garden is really very therapeutic and releasing.
Nice. Yeah,
Definitely.
Yeah, exercising. So distracting the mind basically with other stuff.
Asking other tasks
Of
from
the
the mind.
Yeah, maybe that's a better way to rephrase it. Yeah.
And not be too so scared of stress, right? Because we get this question asked a lot like, oh, I have stress, what to do? I have to lose my stress, which in turn gives you more stress because you think you can't have stress, right? So also let go a bit of let go the rope a little bit, like when you have stress, it's fine. You will not get into a burnout after 1 month of stress, right? It's an accumulation of a long time.
Well, thank you. I think a lot of very valuable answers and examples as well, which are, I'm sure, very helpful. I mean, they've been helpful for me, so I expect them to be helpful for others as well. One more time, there's going to be more exercises coming your way, exercises that you can do by yourself. Is there some reason why you can't figure it out by yourself, if you want to reflect on the exercises? There is a chance you can book a consultation with one of our psychologists and go over the exercise together. You can do the exercise together, but you can also reflect on the exercise together. This will also be obviously mentioned in the email that we're going to send your way whenever the exercises are ready. So this month we're going to focus on stress and worrying. Next month we will be back with a webinar on mindfulness. Also there we will have new exercises, new examples. I'm really looking forward to that. Again, also if there's something else you want to discuss with one of our psychologists, or if you have a question that we just already had where we need to ask a few questions before we can really answer, get back to you on the solution or how you can deal with it, please again book a consultation with one of our psychologists, and they will be able to help you. I want to thank you for your time, your attention, your patience, waiting for this webinar, and also for your patience already for the exercises, because I'm very excited about those as well. Have a good evening, enjoy the weather,